How's it going, guys? It's Mr. Lone Wolf, and today I've got a gameplay and review of this Royal BM17. I've also got a couple of demonstrations of like gearboxes and stuff because I think it's pretty important. A couple of people are mentioning gearboxes, and I just want to kind of show you what I think and why I got to the conclusion I did. But anyway, as for this, we'll get on with the customization options. So first things first, I've got like obviously the top engine in. That's the one you can find as well. The bottom one I don't think you can find, it's just purchasable. But yeah, that's the best engine, best power to weight ratio and everything. High range gearbox, again I'll get into it in a few minutes why that's my personal choice. As for suspension, the raised suspension, it doesn't really raise it a whole lot. Obviously it lets you put bigger tyres on, which is kind of most of the point with stuff, but yeah, it doesn't jump up like it did with the, I think the White Western Star made a pretty noticeable difference. The reason why I just showed this quickly is obviously there's no specific mud tyres, and essentially the off-road tyres are like average, excellent, good or whatever, and the chain tyres are exactly the same, only it adds the ice on as well. The winch I put the strongest one on. This spare wheel, just letting you know, it could, not much, but it can help you beach the middle if that makes sense. As for all the add-ons on the back, it's going to have everything, even that seismic vibrator module thing. It can also have the crane and the saddle low at the same time, which is pretty nice. Funnily enough, I did notice with that fuel add-on, it doesn't actually crush the suspension like it does on a lot of trucks. I still think, to be honest, this thing rolls enough as it is. Alright, this is a Snorkel. We'll get into something later, but there's an issue, basically. It's a bit bugged. But that's a Snorkel. It's not quite as tall as the roof, so I already knew it wasn't going to be amazing. As for the exhaust, that one kicks it out to the side. That one kicks it like in your face in third-person view. To be honest, they all do, except the stock. To be fair, this doesn't smoke a lot, but I'm just saying, that's why I left it stock. A couple of attachments, same old stuff like parking lights, beacons, all that sort of stuff, cabin protector, but yeah, I've just gone for the beacons. As for the bumpers, to be honest, I prefer that bumper, like the one that sort of, yeah, that one. However, it is a tiny bit like worse technically because it sits in front of that stock bumper. Those mud flap things, don't worry about them because they don't do anything. But personally, I'm going to use this for some of it, but I do remove it for a few of the tests. I just to be honest, I like the look of the middle one the most, and this thing catches its nose not silly amounts, but it's not amazing, and I really don't think that bumper's going to make sod all difference. Got that sun protector thing or whatever, it's sun visor. As for the alloys, there's all these different choices. You got quite a lot of choice for this one, but I just go for the second one. And then with colours, obviously I won't go through all the normal ones, but we'll go through the paint schemes. So the one you find it with is that one, which I quite like. That's not bad. It's not bad, but I prefer the blue. I don't think that suits it at all, if I'm honest. That one I definitely like. I think I'll put that on now, yeah. And that one, yeah, I don't hate it, but not as keen as like the red and the blue. I'd say that other green one as well was nicer. But they're your options anyway. See, like that green, by the way, that's a nice green. Like a lot of these paint scheme greens they use, I don't know, it's not as nice. Anyway, we'll get outside and have a look at it. Again, I think very good looking truck. To be honest, I think they've done a really like good job with all the trucks they've picked. I think they all look pretty cool. Inside, bit of an old school interior. I've not seen like engine warning light, things like that for yonks in a car. Pretty good view out the back. It's pretty good out the window as well. Old school leather seats. Yeah, all pretty old looking inside, as you'd expect for something of this age. Yeah, when you stick your head out, there's no exhaust stacks or anything in the way. You can even see like over to the other tyres. So it's definitely a pretty good view. Apparently the mirrors are going to be sorted and working on PS4. There's a patch coming later, I think, by now. It said the 9th anyway. I'll be quiet for the next one. Yeah, the horn, to be honest, acceptable. Definitely not a bad horn at all. So quick look at the Rev Counter. It's the smaller dial in the middle, but yeah, not too bad. It's you can see it, which is nice. So anyway, we'll stick her in gear and we'll get going. As for speed, this is one plus with this thing. It gets flying. You put it in a high range as soon as I set off. And trailers, it can basically have every trailer, obviously as long as you've got the right saddle on. And just quickly to explain, one of the reasons why I use high range gearboxes in these reviews essentially I'm going to test it over loads of terrain, and we all generally know that a low range gearbox is going to do better on slow terrain than a high range gearbox. I just want to see how much the truck can fill in the gaps for potentially a bad choice of gearbox. However, I say potentially because, as you'll see later, sometimes high range is, I would say, the best option, but we'll get onto that a little later. Through here, I mean, it's sticking in high at the minute. Get to about here before you see there I was swerving around. That's one thing I don't really like with this. The steering feels not that responsive, and I find myself like fishtailing a lot. The other reason is the back tries to overtake you. Again, there's better examples later. Up this hill and that, it soon goes flying though. Again, especially in a high range. I just prefer it. I've tried low range plenty. I've spent 70, 80 hours on low range gearboxes. This is a problem that will become apparent with the Royal. You can hit it like that and flip over basically. And you see here, I know I like to kill trees, but this is where it sort of comes important, is like I couldn't kill all 3 trees. The first tree kind of took all the weight out of me, and the second tree absolutely just stopped me dead. If I hit one tree, I got away pretty unscathed. But yeah, basically, the reason why I left that in and I mentioned it is this has a very good power to weight. But power to weight doesn't necessarily mean good power. It can also mean it's light. And they are different things, power and lightness. Through there, I put it in high, it dug in a bit, put it back in auto, and it did pretty well. Just bear in mind as well, because it's not got diffs, auto is like a juicy version of low. Like, I'm not gaining a diff by putting it in low or high-low if I had an off-road gearbox. So yeah, auto is pretty good for that basically. As for the suspension, considering this thing can go fast enough that it can actually give itself a good whack, it's I actually think it wasn't that bad. Like, you'll see I get the odd one here and there, but I would say the ANK has weaker suspension than this. But I wouldn't say it's amazing, but I don't ever remember it being an issue where I'm trying to get to a mission and my suspension is broke before I get there. So yeah, suspension I would say is pretty good considering its speed. It's probably one of the fastest trucks in the game. It might be the fastest, so all things considered, that was pretty good. So anyway, this Black River crossing, and as you can see, to be honest, again, no diffs, so that's not going to help. That first bit's always really slow, but now it goes a bit quicker, but it can vary across here whether low or auto is the best option. I just find a lot of the times that, yeah, put it in auto, like even if I'm in low and it's doing just as fine, it doesn't feel like it's making as much of an effort, is the way I could describe it. Like, when you put it back into auto, it starts spinning the tyres, you're getting a bit of water flicking up, and yeah, maybe it's a bit worse on the fuel consumption, but I usually plan fuel into my routes anyway, just because like the ANK, the Navistar all drink like crazy. Yeah, like look, when you put it back into auto, it just feels like it's actually trying, whereas in low it's just like, yeah, I'm going to go this pace anyway, which is another reason why if I just used off-road gearboxes in all these reviews and just sat it in low permanently, it's like we're not going to learn anything about the truck as much. We're going to learn that an off-road gearbox in low range goes across mud good but slow, and they're all going to be the same speed. So yeah, that's another reason I do use high range in these reviews. But on my own time, I do use low range for some vehicles. Like I say, some respond better, some don't care. And that's what I want to find out in these tests, really. Like, how well do the trucks make up for not having an off-road, like a high-low and stuff. Interesting with this thing, like, this is a problem. You see how the front tyres are stopping now? The back tyres have most of the power. And obviously for an all-wheel drive truck, you would think, say 33% power per axle, but it's definitely not like that. It's more like 80% goes to the rear, like 40% per axle, and there's about 20% at the front. And I've noticed that a lot tonight, that the front, it's almost a gimmick that it's all-wheel drive. Like, look, it needs more grunt from the front, and there's times where, like, even that's why the steering can be iffy, because when you're trying to steer back out of a corner, the front's not pulling you round, the back's pushing, and that makes the back want to overtake the front, and it can get a bit crazy. As for going up here, I had to slow down going up there because I know I'd roll otherwise, but it's faster in auto and high than it is in low. It slows down now because I hit that tree. Again, power to weight doesn't mean power necessarily, and I think with this, a few things tonight surprised me. I thought this would just be one of the most powerful on the game because it goes fast, but there's a few times I reckon it's more that the thing doesn't weigh a lot, so it has good power to weight, but it hasn't necessarily got a monster engine like the Tiger or the Twin Steer. So again, it's like I just wanted to see how the tyres respond to like these bare slippery rocks, and it got up there. To be fair, it got over the other side, checking how the bumper was faring. At this point, I thought the bumper was digging in. However, when I move the camera around, I'm shoving a big rock along, and the fact that the rear's actually gripped on that rock to keep pushing was, yeah, respectable, so I think it did pretty nice there. So next is a quick cargo test and a turning circle. And I have to say, as far as turning circle go, it's yeah, very good. Like, it's on par with the ANK and the White Western Star, so there's definitely not going to be any issues there. But I do feel like the steering is not responsive enough, it's not quick enough. This is that little cut through in Northport where you'd kind of go across to the fuel station. That first half, everything seems to do in high gear. It's when, again, you get past this telegraph pole, things start to become noticeable. And basically, as you can see here, it's ground to a halt. And look, when I put it in low, this is what I don't like with trucks. The front wheels give up, one of the rears give up. I've now put it back in auto and it has a bit more oomph again. But low range, and it was doing this in high-low as well, so if you're thinking, oh, an off-road gearbox has solved that, in auto is a bit like a meaty high-low. Yeah, low range, look, the tyres are giving up. I don't like that. I'd rather a truck wheel spins and gets stuck than it hasn't got enough power. Eventually, I give it a little jiggle around, but look now, I was jiggling in low gear. As soon as I stick it in auto, I start moving again, and it was like, oh, I probably would have been moving earlier if I'd just stayed in auto. And like I say, because it's got no diffs, there's no punishment for going into, leaving it in auto. Like, I don't gain a diff by putting it in low. And then similarly, like trucks like the Tiger, they don't lose a diff or gain a diff or anything by putting it in low. So the only things that probably do benefit from an off-road gearbox are ones that have engageable diffs. So anyway, first quick water test. Pretty decent through here. There was once there it slowed down a little bit, but see, I really don't like the steering on this, I have to say. Other than being not very responsive, it feels like you turn, not a lot's happening for half a second, and then suddenly it goes whoosh, and it's like the whole lock is on and it flies across to like left or right. Got through them rocks with no problem though, but it is pretty narrow. Like, a few of the things I've done recently are pretty meaty. Slow down a bit through this snow. It's not crap in snow by any means, but it's definitely not that great in snow. See, and another reason I use high range, basically, my logic is I'd rather go faster in the fast parts than faster in the slow parts, because I'm generally going to plan my route where there'll be like 80 or 90% fast parts and 5, 10, 20% slow parts. So I'd rather go 80 on the quick bits and 10 in the slow bits than 60 on the quick bits and 15 in the slow bits. But again, that's just my personal choice, that's my opinion, that doesn't mean I'm right, you're wrong, that's just my playstyle, that's what I prefer. So a quick look at interior gameplay anyway while we're actually moving. Again, very good views, I have to say. The bonnet is like, you can see it, so it's officially there and in the way, but it ain't that bad. I did notice myself looking in the bottom left a little bit. Again though, with low range, and this is in my high range gearbox, so I'm not having a go at like people's low range gearbox, but as soon as I realised I was in low, I was like, oh fuck that, I'll put it in auto and high, and I go taking off. It's like, this is where I like to gain time, and I know that I might pay for that in the slower bits, but I can always attach a winch usually, and that'll pull me about as quick as a high-low anyway, so that's again my choice. But going through here, it did clip its front bumper. It's not crap, but it's definitely not got like a very good angle like the White Western Star and stuff. And the ANK has a very good bumper angle as well. See, and you remember through here, the Tiger got to about here before it ran out of steam in high range, whereas that got caught out a lot quicker. Which again, less power, just a lighter truck I reckon. Which I didn't think before this. I would have said most powerful, but I don't think so after this. As for this rock bridge, to be honest, it did pretty well. I expected it like to do pretty good. I've been trying things like the Cat and the P16 across here recently, so by comparison this had a pretty easy old time with it. But I got to here and I stuck it in high. Almost that slow steering caught me out and I nearly slipped off the side of the rock. Flies up this hill though, no problem at all. However, catches its nose there. And then through here, some trucks just drive through here, no problem. It gets deep here. I put it in low and it goes slow. I put it in auto, it goes faster. Low, slow, auto, faster. So again, to me, auto is just a good version of low, really. And another reason why I like it is, you know, when you go to reverse, and because you've got it in low or high, your reverse button isn't reverse anymore. And that can catch you out sometimes when you're about to fall off a hill and you need to stick it in reverse. You squeeze the trigger and you're like, oh crap, I've got no reverse in that trigger at the minute. And then you fall off the cliff. So if I can help it, that's why I like to be in auto even on off-roading. Partly like a lazy choice really, because I don't want to have to keep pressing L1 and shifting the gears all the time. Sometimes I need to have a quick snappy decision and like bang it in reverse pretty damn quick before I crash or something. So now for the mud pit in Northport. I have to say, even already I was like, well, that's respectable, because I thought it'd just get nailed here because it hasn't got any diffs. But it is clawing its way through up to now. However, this is where you see the front wheels now just slowing down and stuff. There's not enough power to it. Like, if that had more power, it'd be ripping its way through the front, whereas now it's basically being pushed by the back, and those front tyres are bordering on just a gimmick. They're spinning because they are, but look, now they've just given up. You get little twitches of power, but it's like, yeah, to me that's not enough. It's virtually a rear-wheel drive truck, which again is another thing I've found out really by doing this. This is why I quite like these reviews. Like, I learn a hell of a lot. Obviously I edit it for time, but essentially you can see what's happening now. The bumper's scraping on the floor. That's what's lifting the weight off the front tyres, which is why they're now spinning freely, because there's no weight on them. But yeah, it's basically stuck, and then I ended up winching to one of them trees, pulling my nose out to the left, and then I drove out. So yeah, not great, but again, I didn't expect it because of no diffs. It was never going to do amazing. So for the mountain test, deep snow, you definitely have to go pretty slow on, whether you like it or not. But once you get to the shallow stuff, it's pretty good. So it's basically beating the Derry Longhorn by now. And yeah, power-wise, like doing stuff like this, on its own at least, it's fine. But again, this is the reoccurring problem. And you look, I'm not even that far over when it cocks the wheel and decides to go. So it tipped. But I've given other trucks a chance. I brought the Taiga along. I mean, look, the Taiga's just a beast, to be honest. Attach the winch, start trying to flick it over. And it was being a dick, so I just put the Taiga in reverse. And look, the power of the Taiga, one little touch of reverse, I flip the thing so hard it goes back the other way. But this is like, again, why this video is a bit longer. There's some demonstrations you need to see. Look, that Taiga just went round that rock, didn't flip at all. This thing, it would have flopped back over to the other side again, but luckily the Taiga, that's why I parked the Taiga there. Tried to test it on these slippy rocks, but straight away it went again. And this is the thing with this truck, it's top heavy, so when you're rolling like this, it always wants to find its way onto its side. And this is where I think trucks like the ANK are not top heavy, they're just fairly narrow, and they tip over. But now, if this was the ANK, I reckon the ANK would grip in with its front wheels and flick me back onto my wheels. But this, because it's top heavy, like the cab feels like it's 50% of the weight, it always just wants to lay on its side, and getting it back upright is a pain in the arse. Whereas you'll see something with the Taiga in a minute which shows the difference. But again, I wanted to give it another chance. I rescued it again with a Taiga. I tried to take any leaning out of it and just drive straight up, and for that it did pretty well. I can't knock it, to be honest. how the hell it didn't go there. That's definitely as far as you're getting away with it. And yeah, carried on a little further. I didn't bother with the tipping test up there because we all know it's going to go. But what I wanted to try was, if you've seen the White Western Star video, that drove up here. This started to, but then the wheels skidded round. I didn't turn into that. And like I said, look, it's top heavy. So every time I land back on the wheels, it keeps going. The chances of rolling this and landing back on your wheels are slim, because if it's got enough momentum to hit its wheels, it'll just keep going again. Whereas look at this, I'm turning left a bit there. It did finally roll, but the Taiga is bottom heavy. So it always, or mostly, finds its way back to its wheels, and then it'll stop when it lands on its wheels. The Royal is the opposite, it'll stop when it's back on its side. And yeah, I just wanted to show like that difference is like if you went scouting in either of these vehicles, this thing would walk all over it, other than the fact that it climbs up bloody everything and goes everywhere. But that bottom heaviness, as you'll start to see now, didn't tip there. I'm not even letting off the throttle with this. I'm not worrying about it. I'm just flooring it. And look at it, like the Royal would have gone 10 times over. So would the ANK. Like, it's a very lazy driving with this. It tips, but it's bottom heavy, finds its way back to its wheels, and I'm off again. Guaranteed, the Royal, if it made it that far, would have gone an extra 90 degrees and ended up on its side. And just to show my point, this rock I'm coming up to, I was going to go over it, and then I thought, no, I'll go off the side to prove what I mean. And this is about as far as you can push it. But look at that, it just, rather than flop around, because all the weight's like, it feels like 80% of the weight of this truck is nice and low down, especially with these tyres. I think they are part to play in that. But yeah, tipping this thing over is not easy, and if you do, you're most likely going to end up back on your wheels anyway. So even there, like, it ain't going. All across here it was fine. In the end I actually do tip it, which is probably a good thing, because I would have just been driving this thing around then all night long. But when I got to here, I let off just because I didn't want my wheels to skid that way, but I'm also turning into this, if you notice. And when I roll, I hit this tree and it stops me, so I reckon I would have got back to my wheels. But that's the difference. That's where something like this, or the White Western Star, that's very good for not rolling. Whereas this and the ANK, but I still think the ANK would have flicked itself back on its wheels. This thing, nah, not a chance really. So I'm going to go to Zimnegor's, because there's some other things I want to show you. One that are related to, obviously, reviewing this truck, but... See, can you hear that? That thing sounds like a croaking predator when I've got my headset on at 3 in the morning on my own in a pitch black flat. It's like, I got some like Turtle Beach PX800 or whatever they're called. It sounds like there's a predator sat on my shoulder about to eat me up. I'm looking around everywhere now, like where the hell? Freaking me out. Anyway, one big plus with this truck, at least compared to the White Western Star, if you remember when I got cargo with the White Western Star, it immediately turned into a different truck that was asthmatic and struggling and all sorts. This, them slabs are pretty heavy cargo, and obviously it's affected it, but it didn't turn into a different truck like the White Western Star. So when I start going up here, main problem with the Royal, it tips easy. I've been having a conversation with a guy. I agree that he says the flatbed trailers he prefers. I said the reason I like sideboard trailers is because if your cargo disconnects, there's a chance it can stay in the trailer. And a few seconds before I rolled, you could hear the cargo disconnect, and it stayed in the trailer, whereas a flatbed, and I'll show you, there's another example as well, but yeah, I'm just saying, I agree flatbeds look better, but sideboards are safer. So look, this is the problem. I was going up that hill, I went into second and it dropped itself back to first, and because it did that pause and it lost its momentum, now I can't get up there. Its wheels spinning, half the tyres are just locking up because they've not got enough power, particularly that inside rear axle is the one I really need. The front is spinning now, but as you'll see when I like rolled backwards, the front does a wheelie, so there's basically no weight on the front. And eventually, if you notice in the bottom right, I went back to the garage and put a low range gearbox in. Tried again. Now this time you'll be thinking, oh, well, there you go, you see, low range is better. Just bear in mind, I didn't lose my momentum there by going from second to first. However, when I go up here, I tested it, put the handbrake on, tried to set off. Look at it, not one wheel even moves with a low range gearbox. I tried auto, tried high low, I tried medium low. And obviously I've edited a lot of these bits out, but I was sat here for about 10 minutes trying everything. Like, I've got no problem admitting if something's better. I personally prefer high range, so that's my opinion. If I'm not trying to defend it or whatever, that's the one I enjoy the most. But from testing tonight, this low range gearbox just had no guts to it. Like, even though it lowers the ratios of the gears, it didn't feel like it increased the torque. So basically I got stuck. I turned around and went for another run up. And you hear that there again, my cargo just disconnected. If I had a flatbed, that would have just flew off. Like, just this guy was saying he's never had this happen to him, and I have it happen. Like, it happens 4 times when I'm here alone. So there, when I hit my nose, the cargo would have shot forward and hit the back of my truck, which in real life would kill you. That's why they'd have a cabin protector. So I took another proper run up at it, where I, yeah, basically just to give it another attempt and see. I stopped on the hill this time. Eventually, it did take a few minutes, but I managed to get it going in high-low. But now, if you look, I don't touch it, I don't interrupt it, I don't change gear, and it dies again, runs out of power coming up this hill. And to me, I don't like that. Like, that now feels like a truck limitation, not a mechanic, like a grip limitation. I'd rather just wheel spin now. And here, because I was like, I wanted to see for myself, here's a truck that can actually do it properly and just get up this hill. And then in a minute, I know, I appreciate, I apologise if this video is a bit long, but you're going to see something in a minute that I think will surprise you. It surprised me, put it that way. Yeah, I mean, look at this thing, just walks up. I even changed from auto to high-low. See, I've got an off-road gearbox in this. So, and that was just because I was playing around doing other things when I'm not making, like, videos. So, I'm not anti-low-range gearbox, but after I got up that hill, I remembered that just over here is an even taller hill. And while I was here, it's like, you know, while in Rome, give it a go. But anyway, this is the low range gearbox, right? And I'm in high-low. I honestly thought this would just walk up here. And as you can see, it is, basically. Especially because 90% of the time I've got the high range in this thing. However, got to here, and it suddenly stops. But notice how all the tyres are spinning. Like, I like that, I can live with that, because now it's not a truck limitation. Like I say, it's a terrain limitation, it's a game mechanic limitation, which is better than a power limitation, certainly in my mind. Honestly, I edit a lot of this out, but I was trying high-low, medium-low, low-low, auto, high-range. I gave each one about 3 goes each. I genuinely gave it the best shot I could, because I was even thinking at the minute, well, if this ain't going to do it, then I don't know if high-range is going to fare any better. But yeah, I was, like I say, obviously high, it's just going to stall because it's too steep, but I do edit it here, or pretty soon, but I promise you, I was here for about another 5 or 10 minutes. That's partly why this video is so late, because I was messing around doing all this. Doing like side-to-side comparisons with high and low range gearbox. So as you can see, the gearbox, I went back to the garage, recovered to Zimnegor's, came back with a high range gearbox. Now there, I went to do it in auto, but unluckily, just as it put it into second gear, I hit the slope, and it died a bit. So I thought, well, while I'm at it, I'll put it in low, and this is just bog standard low now in a high range gearbox. And it starts walking up, got to there, and it stopped level with that rock. I tried to wiggle for a while, but it was having none of it. However, that's as high as the best shot the off-road gearbox could take, basically. Everything I tried, that's how high the off-road got. So I just wanted to give this one chance at a bit of a like run-up, because I had that same run-up with the off-road gearbox. However, I tried it in high and no luck. But then now, watch this. I put it in auto. This is high-range auto, which I've already said I think is like a juicy version of high-low. And look at it. Actually gets beat the off-road gearbox fair and square. And yeah, I do use the winch there. I genuinely think I could have got up without the winch, but it's irrelevant. The game has winches. We all would use the winch. That's what I'd do in real life. Like, if I'm close enough to a winch point, I'm going to use it. So that literally just beat the low range gearbox up a bloody steep hill with heavy cargo. So yeah, now, like, if you're seeing why I like high range, because it's extremely capable and I have the speed. Again, by the way, cargo, I tip over, the cargo disconnected, but I didn't lose it because of the sideboard. Whereas again, flatbed trailer, that stuff would have just gone. The instant you hear that unpacking noise, it would have gone. And then I just straighten back up, pack cargo, and I'm off. And like I say, that guy said it's never happened to him, and he said he does like the low range gearbox, so he probably doesn't come across it as much as me, because I go a bit faster with my high range. But yeah, I was saying to him, like, it does happen. And again, I couldn't stage this if I wanted to, but it happened to me. And then look, again, one last time, trailer pops off, you hear the unpacking noise, and yet it sits on the trailer again. That's 4 times in about half an hour that I would have lost the cargo if I had a flatbed. So that's just why I prefer the sideboard, even though I prefer the look of the flatbed. So you see with this Royal, this is the issue with not enough power to the front. The rear is constantly trying to overtake me, and as I'm trying to steer to counter it, there's not enough muscle in the front wheels to pull my front back round. And like I say, I've owned many cars in my time where the rear tries to overtake the front. Like, it's fun, but it doesn't make for very safe, straight driving. And eventually I'm trying to wrestle it straight so I can do a speed test. Again, this thing is rapid, there's no doubt about that. Fastest truck in the game, I would say. But bear in mind, I've got chain tyres on. Starts drifting, which normally I'd like, but I certainly had no intention for that to happen. I was trying to do an interior view of the Speedo. But yeah, it absolutely flicked out. By the way, Hummer, I'll do a little Hummer update at the end of the video, so there's a few interesting things that happen with it. See, there again, just trying to go straight, and the rear overtakes the front, and I can't steer out of it because of the slow steering rack and the lack of front wheel power. However, when you do get her straight down the runway, she does fly with the best of them, I'll give her that. There is something interesting though, and this is what I was saying with the Snorkel. If you notice, Snorkel's definitely out the water. I start the engine, I'm getting engine damage. So at this point, I was like, that's a bit weird. So I played around with it. That's what she said. Flew off here, again, I had to, like, why not? I was trying to come down here to do another water test. Now, I mean, look at this, like, the Hummer is good, and I know it's got a damaged engine, but grip here is the problem. And you know I'm going to have to call the horse. See, that Hummer couldn't even pull the Royal. But again, because the weight of the Royal is not in the base of it, it feels like a lot's in the cab. So it is harder to, like, to tip over. I mean, look at this thing. It just... you can't kill it. Every time it rolls on its side, it just gets away with something. And that's it. It's just like, see you bitches? It's got loafy things to get on with. Look at it! Who the hell made this thing? Tell you, Russia, man. They know how to make an off-road vehicle. Someone told me, which is very true, in Russia, very sparsely populated and massive, it's cheaper to build vehicles that can go off-road than it is to build roads. And it makes a lot of sense. That's why Russia's so good at building off-road vehicles. It's just, yeah, saves having to build roads. So anyway, we're going to go for a drowning test, and like you say, sadly, with the I tested the crap out of this. I even reset my game, like, computer, to see if it was just that. Even though I've got the Snorkel on, it's acting like I've still got the stock air filter on. So, funny enough, I've not heard anyone mention this, but it's definitely happened with me. Like I say, I went back, I changed it a couple of times. I yeah, turned my computer off and on. It was having none of it. I was going to ram that then, but I couldn't do it. It's been too good to me, that loaf. Didn't want to damage it because I wanted to do a drowning test with a good engine. So though, if you stop like that in real life, you'd have sphincter bite marks in your seat right about now where you puckered up. Anyway, like I say, I was trying to get down without damaging the engine so I could do a fair drowning test, and look at it. It's already drowning way before the snorkel's underwater, but look, I've never seen an engine take 78 in one hit from underwater, so yeah, water, they need to fix that glitch, which this patch later may well do it, but there's a big patch coming later, by the way, so yeah, there's a lot of things getting fixed. I think like clipping trucks and all sorts. So you remember I normally stick my head out the window and try and race the water to see if I can still get my head out. I didn't even get deep enough in there to stick my head out. That's what she said. But it's true though. It's yeah, it ain't that great in water. Tried to detonate a few fish, but it didn't cheer me up if I'm honest. So anyway, in conclusion, do you know what? I feel bad saying this, but it's true. This is the first truck I've reviewed where I don't like it as much as before I reviewed it. Or not don't like it as much, but I don't think it's as capable as I thought it was. Like I say, I think the power to weight is more light than power. The steering's too slow. The front axles haven't got enough power going to them, and it rolls too much. However, early game, it is a very good truck. It's the first truck I found when I had no other trucks, and it did me very well for early game, so I'm not knocking it, I'm not saying don't get it, but it has got its issues. By the time you get to like mid-game, I found the ANK. The death of this for me was I found the ANK with it, and as soon as I started that thing up, I was like, yep, I'm keeping this. So it's been sat gathering dust for a little while. I do get it out every now and then, just because I get all my trucks out every now and then. I don't just want to use the Taiga for everything. I just looked there, sorry, it's 122 grand stock, so, and you can find this very early game, so you could have a nice straight cash injection of 122 grand. You could sell it and go and buy Voron and stuff, so either way it's worth getting, but that's my opinion of it. And yeah, I hope you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon. For those of you who just want to stay and find out what's going on with the Hummers, I'll, well, gather round, pull up a seat. So, first Hummer, still stuck in the mountain. It's not really having the time of its life. Not like I was flying off the cliffs. Next Hummer, I mean, it's still in there, but I was like, well, that's wiggled its way out a bit. The driver's not too happy about things. His arms are a bit bendy and that. I can't check for DLC under the garage anymore, but other than that, it's definitely moved its way out a bit. So these are like hours apart, basically. Thought I'd try and give this one a bit of encouragement. Didn't go amazingly well, but I tried. I don't give up first round though. That thing absolutely nailed me. But anyway, that didn't go too well then. I tried to have a look at it again though. I had moved it a bit. See, every now and then it tricks you. Oh, by the way, that's an auto gearbox, isn't it? Like an auto shifter, but it's got 3 pedals. That's just one thing I noticed. As for this one, went back a few hours later. I was like, oh, it's jiggling around a lot more than it was. Like, and the actual doors are out, and then pops out like a good one, like it just gave birth. Rolls on its back. Now it looks like a little turtle in its shell. But look at the dent I left in this guy's yard. I was pretty proud of that. That was some impact. However, one Hummer, I've got her back. Finally. And I tell you, I recovered it to garage, I've learnt my lesson, I ain't doing that again. I take that back, I learnt my lesson for about 14 seconds. Only this time, it didn't go for as much as a flight. It wanted to become a mole, just like the other one. But at this point I was like, oh no, I've gone and done it again. Why did I do it? Why did I not just keep it in the garage when I said to myself don't do it again, and then I did it again. Now this one, it's moved a bit more, but its wheels were missing. So I came back about an hour or so later and it's got its wheels back. So I thought, well, maybe it just needs a bit of encouragement. Now one thing I can rate the Royal for, if you need to smack a Hummer out of a cliff, very good. However, the Royal didn't land on its wheels. This thing, oh, it'll be on eBay later. One owner from new, slightly used condition. 20 grand or near offer. What do you reckon? What a minter. You see now, the engine isn't in the red, and I still can't pull this Royal over, so you know he's going to have to come and sort things out again.